Alright guys, today we are going to be reacting to why this German IFV is so hot right now. Let's jump in.
Sure, it's not Germany's newest generation of Puma IFVs, which recently made headlines for their technical problems, but sometimes a battle and time-tested solution is better at a time like this.
But some would argue many of these Western armored vehicles have never been truly battle-tested, since most of them have only seen combat in counterinsurgency missions in the Middle East, instead of a large force-on-force action.
Why did Germany offer these IFVs to Ukraine now instead of months ago? Could this be the beginning of the end for Russia, or will it have a negligible effect on the battlefield?
First, the Marder can trace its roots to what many sources call the world's first infantry fighting vehicle. You see, in World War II, German-made tanks had success breaking through Soviet lines, but once they'd broken through into enemy territory, they found that their tanks could be surrounded and taken rather easily by Soviet infantry once their tanks had slowed. Germany tried adding more infantry to their tank divisions, but the soldiers on the ground had a hard time keeping up with the fast-moving tanks. Walking can be exhausting. What they needed was a way to deliver soldiers alongside, or rather inside of their tanks. For decades after World War II, Germany poured their blood, sweat, and tears into perfecting a troop transport that had the right mix of firepower and armor. Based on this, Germany created what many sources call the world's first purpose-built infantry fighting vehicle, the Schützenpanzer Lang HS-30 in 1958. This vehicle concept had all of the qualities that go into your modern IFV package. You got the high speed, plenty of armor, room for infantry to get cozy in the back, and of course a big bad cannon turret up top to protect everyone. But first attempts don't always nail it. There was a bunch of issues with the HS-30, it was unreliable. And that's where the work on the Marder 1 began. The vehicle was intended to be an upgrade for the Schützenpanzer Lang HS-30.
The main design objectives for the new vehicle were to have a capacity of 12 infantrymen to support a more reliable 20mm cannon.
Germany issued development contracts to multiple different companies, and 15 different prototypes for the Marder infantry fighting vehicle were produced by 1963. In 1967, the Rheinstahl Group created a third and final group of 10 prototypes that eventually led to the production of the Marder in 1969. Rheinstahl became the prime contractor, and the first Marder was delivered to West Germany in May of 1971. By 1975, they produced over 2,100 Marders, which West Germany kept and stockpiled in the midst of the Cold War. The Marder was named after the European pine marten, an agile weasel-like creature that lives in the trees. I wouldn't compare the IFV to a weasel, but the Marder is known for having a nice balance of armor and mobility. Are weasels well armored? Can Marders climb trees? I don't know.
Yo, we have to watch that again. Shout out to the guy, man. He just grabbed that weasel like nothing.
Marder is known for having a nice balance of armor and mobility. Are weasels well armored? Can Marders climb trees? I don't know. A common tactic that you see used with these IFVs, that my unit actually used in Iraq as well, is you have what's called air guards, or soldiers hanging out the back of the vehicle through the hatches. Any sane person might wonder, why are these troops hanging outside the protection of the armor? It's to protect the vehicle's one major vulnerability, which is its close proximity blind spots. Infantry hanging outside the vehicle are there to stop anyone who's hiding in a bush 5 meters away waiting to throw a shape charge hand grenade. The Marder's manufacturer, Rheinmetall, back in September of 2022, made a press release stating that they had just finished restoring and upgrading 16 Marder IFVs for the purpose of being sent to Ukraine.
Rheinmetall reportedly were already working on an additional 14 and plan to have 70 finished.
We know it costs about $133 million to upgrade 78 Marders.
We know what this upgrade package normally includes. It has a replacement for the old 1980s equipment in the new Rheinmetall Electronic Sapphire 2.6. The high-resolution sensor improves observational range and reconnaissance abilities. And this is one of the most overlooked factors about why these vehicles, I think, will make such a huge difference on the battlefield. They are assets for the infantry to use to get better situational awareness. These are the eyes of the infantrymen. I think what we might be seeing is a new...
So basically you can carry much more soldiers, right? So at least what, 4 to 5, 6 to 7 if you have the one driving the tank and the other guy that's just checking the surrounding. This is a great idea, and this is also good for the advancement. Isn't that what Russians do currently? They're just currently their tank, they're doing something similar to this. They just simply putting some aluminum or metals over their tanks, and that way they can just have people to move forward to the front line, which I think is stupid because they get blow up all the time. But that's the idea.
Phase in the war that will be characterized by who is able to best integrate their infantry tactics with their tank strategy. The upgraded version includes a 750 horsepower engine instead of the 600 horsepower one, so it should be able to handle the heavier armor better in the mud. The German government and member states of NATO alliance allegedly had decided amongst themselves not to send Western model tanks and infantry fighting vehicles to Ukraine. However, this goalpost started to shift when many countries started sending the American M113 and the British Spartan armored vehicle to the armed forces of Ukraine. These vehicles lack heavy cannon firepower though.
And also, it's not, just to put it like this, Russia can use that as a resource, right? They can just pull back some of these metals and all the stuff, and they can use some of these resources, all the tanks.
But these vehicles turned out to be extremely useful for Ukraine in their first counteroffensive operation.
But the original Marder weighed just under 30 tons and could travel up to 47 miles per hour. But additional armor added to the Marder 1A3 iteration of the vehicle would add about 5 more tons of weight, mostly additional armor to counter the rising threat of anti-tank missiles, but this meant a trade-off of slowing it down to a top speed of 40 miles per hour.
It was designed to match the mobility of its best friend on the battlefield, the Leopard main battle tank.
The Marder without its Leopard is like Robin without Batman. The vehicle carries 172 gallons of fuel, giving it a road range of just over 300 miles, although in combat that distance is probably about half that due to a higher fuel consumption and idle times.
It's propelled by a deal track, which can be fitted with rubber road pads. Rubber band tracks have a lot of benefits. They cause the tank to vibrate less and are much more quiet, which actually has a big effect on tank crews. The loud high vibration can wear down and fatigue a tank crew quickly. But I kind of doubt that Ukraine will use rubber tracks for a few reasons, although I could be very wrong. Most rubber tracks currently cannot be replaced in sections.
Oh,
the
wow.
entire band track needs to
Yo, this is so great. This is a great technology. Wow.
be thrown out and replaced when damaged. This makes maintaining them in combat more difficult.
The Marder is capable of fording in up to 1.5 meters of water and can be fitted with a kit to allow it to ford in water up to 2.5 meters deep.
It can carry up to 9 total soldiers, 3 crew, and 6 infantry, just short of the initial goal of 12-person capacity. This gives the vehicle more carrying capacity for ferrying troops into battle compared to the American M2 Bradley. The driver has 3 day periscopes, one of which can be replaced with a night vision device. The center of the hull holds the 2-man turret. The commander sits on the right and the gunner on the left. The commander has 8 day periscopes and the gunner has 3. The updated version of the tank includes thermal sights with 2 and 8x magnification.
The IFV's main armament is the 20mm.
Yeah, look at that. It's beautiful, right? The design is it's very nice. Yo, I forgot to tell you guys. I was watching a documentary about tanks, and they found some tanks from the Russian side. And I know some of these tanks are old, like from the 1960 and 1970. No wonder. Well, I don't know why they're using old technology. That's very interesting. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about that. I would love to know.
Rheinmetall Mark 20 RH202 autocannon that fires AP rounds at 1,100 meters per second.
It's mounted in the small 2-man turret and is able to fire armor-piercing and high-explosive rounds for anti-personnel. The 7.62 MG3 machine gun attached coaxially to the left of the cannon allows gunners to save main gun rounds if a soft target is in the open and not behind cover. The Milan anti-tank guided missile launcher can be attached to the turret. This holds up to 4 missiles carried inside the hull. I've seen conflicting reports on whether or not adding the Milan missile launcher and its storage reduces the infantry capacity down to 5 dismounts.
Early versions of the Marder had a second remote-controlled MG3 mounted on the rear of the vehicle to provide cover for infantry as they dismounted.
This was discarded in later models, though, along with the 4 gun ports, which allowed infantry inside the IFV to fire at enemy on the outside.
The gun ports were abandoned in the Marder 1A3 models when an extra layer of armor and storage boxes was added to the design.
We see this decision to discard the firing ports was done across most IFVs and Western militaries at the time. The original idea behind them was that it would allow soldiers to engage the enemy if they were fighting in a war zone that had recently been nuked. This goes to show the level of fear military planners had about the likelihood of an atomic.
Wow, everything because the fear of having an atomic bomb being dropped. Wow. incredible.
War in the early 60s, when a lot of these IFVs were originally developed.
The German IFV has a hull made of welded steel, which gives it protection from small arms fire and shell fragments. The original vehicle provided protection up to 20mm armor-piercing, discarding sabot rounds. But the A3 would protect up to 30mm rounds, which are the same type fired by the Russian vehicles.
It's among the best armor in the world. Like how you go to New York for a bagel and egg cheese sandwich, you go to Germany for the top-notch armor engineering.
The Marder also has 2 banks of 3 electronically operated 76mm smoke grenade dischargers to provide cover for the vehicle in close proximity.
So if Russian soldiers try to fire anti-tank guided missiles at the Marder, Ukrainian soldiers can deploy a smokescreen in an attempt to prevent the hit.
There have been many versions of the Marder over the years.
And I would love to see that in action, to see how it works, right? It sounds good in theory, but I would love to see, unless they found you and then you throw the smoke screen, right? And then all of a sudden you start escaping, right? That'll be one, right? That'll be a good way to use it. But I don't know.
Years. In fact, Germany has had a hard time getting rid of the vehicle. The most common version is the 1A3, which was developed in the late 80s and 90s. This is the version with the added armor and the weight that slowed it down a bit.
The Marder 1A4 added a cryptology-capable radio, and the Marder 1A5 added mine protection and later IED protection. And very importantly, it had multispectral camouflage. And while traditional military camouflage like paint and camo nets that have leaves on it are an attempt to hide the tank from the visible spectrum, multispectral camouflage is a modern method of
That's actually very good.
trying to hide objects from thermal, infrared, and radar signature. This effort is extremely important, and it's often a factor that's completely forgotten in modern warfare. Because we've been up against an enemy without much in the way of thermal imaging capabilities. But today, it's one of the main ways the enemy spots you, oftentimes using UAVs with thermal cameras. This NATO research paper that I found explains...
that'll be such a... If you can make that kind of camouflage... Oof.
Attempt to mask a vehicle's heat signature to imitate vegetation, soil, and clay. You can see here in 4.2.1, this section talks about how they've already had some success in fooling enemy thermal cameras with these nets. One surprising fact about the Marder IFV is that it wasn't used in combat for its first 38 years of existence. It was involved in peacekeeping missions in the former Yugoslavia in the 1990s, but it wasn't until 2009 that it was involved in its first combat operations against the Taliban in the Chahar Dar district of Afghanistan's Kunduz province.
In July of 2009, a German combat outpost defended against the Taliban attack using the Marder IFV.
Troops were able to wound dozens of enemy Taliban, reportedly. The vehicle proved very useful in battle despite their age. German troops described them as a great tactical asset.
The best historical analogy for how the Marder might perform in Ukraine would be the German-led offensive to capture and hold the town codename Operation Hamazag against Taliban fighters in Kuala Talam.
On the 31st of October in 2010, reports indicate it was likely 100 enemy Taliban fighters defending the town. We're able to learn about it by translating a German post with first-hand accounts by German soldiers from the battle.
One single Marder held back a Taliban attempt to outflank 300 dismounted German paratroopers who had gotten out of their armored vehicles. The German IFV was able to protect them with its thermal optics ability that was easily able to pick off the enemy.
The operation goal was to capture an enemy-held town, so I think there are a lot
that was real? That looked like a video game.
of parallels to how it could potentially be used for the types of operations Ukraine might be planning. To get an idea about the vehicle's limitations, there was one IED strike in June 2011 when a German Marder was catastrophically destroyed in Kunduz. It took a 450-pound IED for one soldier to be KIA and 5 others injured in the vehicle. Forbes estimates that each of Ukraine's army's 24 mechanized brigades would need approximately 100 IFVs to be useful. Ukraine has been interested in Germany's Marder IFVs for a while now. Dmytro Kuleba, Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, expressed his disappointment in Germany on Twitter for withholding their Marder and Leopard main battle tanks back in...
The audacity, huh? The audacity. Give me 1 second, guys.
September of 2022. He wrote,
"Disappointing signals from Germany, while Ukraine needs Leopards and Marders now.
To liberate people and save..."
You guys hear a beep in the background. It's just I need to change the fire alarm. We tried to fix it. We can't fix it. So you guys are going to be hearing like a small beep. Just ignore it.
them from genocide, not a single rational argument on why these weapons cannot be supplied. Only abstract fears and excuses. What is Berlin afraid of that Kiev is not?
Bro, you simply, supposedly, I don't know if that's true or not, a lot of these armaments and equipment that's being sent is seeing that they're overusing and is they getting destroyed. And that's a lot of money, guys. That's a lot of money. And not only that, you're giving the chance to potentially Russians to just take a look at some of this technology and just replicate it too. You see? And Russians don't have resources, so they can use some of the resources as well. You know, I mean, it's a lot of stuff, you know. It's a lot of stuff, man. So they're just keeping some of this technology. They're helping Ukraine, bro, but they're not gonna give you the entire. No, they want Germany to just give them everything. No, I don't think that's a good idea. You just give them what you guys can, and if it's not working, it's not working.
And it looks like their prayers may have been answered because Germany has just agreed to send the Leopard main battle tank.
Yeah, I
the
think
US
it's fine.
and other NATO countries have provided Ukraine with monetary and military support throughout the ongoing war with Russia, but this offering is completely different. This move signifies not only a willingness by NATO allies to up their support for Ukraine in the face of Putin's aggression, but more importantly, it marks a turning point in Ukraine's overall approach to the war. In some areas, Zelensky and his troops are moving from defense to offense with support of the Western world, which could spell the beginning of the end for Russia. However, Russian forces recently made tactical advances, reportedly capturing the city of Soledar near Bakhmut. So why is Germany having a change of heart now? Well, first, they didn't want to act.
That was a couple of years ago, right? Because Germany is, that was years ago. That Bakhmut, that's the old story already.
Unilaterally, they wanted to act trilaterally.
That's
I don't
all
think
history.
I'm using that term correctly, but what I'm meaning to say is that Germany acted in cooperation with France and the United States to send similar capabilities to Ukraine at the same time. France announced on January 5th that they'd be sending the AMX-10 RC armored fighting vehicles to Ukraine. Ukraine President Zelensky praised the move and encouraged other Western nations to do the same. The next day, the USA announced that they'd be sending around 50 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles to Ukraine as part of a $2.8 billion weapons package. Germany made their Marder announcement the very same day. Strength in numbers, right? I think the West had a change of heart for a few reasons. They didn't want to send massive amounts of weapons all at once, but they have chosen to do it slowly over time to avoid provoking Russia. They didn't want to send hundreds of high firepower IFVs to Ukraine.
Yeah, because it looks, it's true. He's right. It seemed way too aggressive.
Only to find out that they would be captured by Russia. But since Ukraine has shown that they're more than safe of an investment, it's easier to justify sending these vehicles now. But that is, of course, just speculation, and I could be wrong. Meanwhile, at the same time, the German Defense Minister, Christine Lambrecht, remained hesitant to send a proper high firepower infantry fighting vehicle. She said in September, quote, "No country has yet delivered Western-style armored personnel carriers or main battle tanks, and we have agreed with our partners that we will not do it alone." A lot of support, especially by European nations so far, has been indirect and measured as to not provoke Putin,
who has made nuclear threats in the face of new equipment being sent to Ukraine.
The 500 Russian armored vehicles captured by Ukraine, the
So
ones
he's basically telling the other countries, like, stay alone. This is between me and Ukraine. You wanna fight as well? We're gonna blow you up. That's what he's saying. Very interesting video, but I don't know, man. That was a year ago, right? Bakhmut has already been taken. A lot of that territory has been lost. I saw a video that it was uploaded like yesterday, I think. No, 2 days ago. Some of these Americans, they go to Ukraine. Yo, these places, they look World War II style. World War II style. A lot of equipment is being lost there too. And I have some friends of mine that are actually in Germany, and they are, they're getting reported how they're training the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians are not. They still want to go all the Soviet style. They want to go that old Soviet style doing war. I have to remind myself they were part of Russia only a couple years ago, so it makes sense why they want to go back to that. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. This is very interesting, guys. I'll see you next one.